When a narcissist can no longer come back into your life, what haunts them the most is not the love they lost, but the control they can no longer exercise. Control is their oxygen. It is the way they validate their existence. They thrive on knowing they can pull your strings, manipulate your emotions, and keep you trapped in their cycle of chaos and reconciliation. When that access is gone, when you have closed the door for good, it does not just frustrate them, it destabilizes the foundation of how they see themselves. Suddenly the very thing they rely on to feel powerful is stripped away. And the thought of you begins to linger in their mind like an unsolvable puzzle. They don't think about you in the way a healthy person reminisces about a relationship. Their thoughts are not rooted in love, compassion, or even regret in the purest sense. What they obsess over is the fact that their grip slipped. They replay moments where they once had you under their control, when a simple text or call from them could trigger your emotions and bring you back into their orbit. But now, with the realization that those tactics no longer work, their thoughts about you shift from triumph to torment. In their mind, losing control of you is like losing a prized possession. You become the reminder of the one arena where their manipulation failed. And because narcissists cannot stand failure, they ruminate. They think of ways they might have regained control. They invent scenarios where you crumble and come back. They even convince themselves that one day you might weaken. This internal battle is not about love. It's about dominance. That's why, even if they never admit it, you remain on their mind. Because you represent the part of their game that ended with them losing. And to someone who thrives on control, that loss cuts deeper than anything else. And so when you walk away and never look back, the narcissist will think about you, not because they truly miss you, but because you symbolize the one thing they cannot reclaim: power. What most people don't realize is that narcissists are fueled by ego, and when they can no longer come back into your life, their thoughts about you are deeply tied to the injury of their pride. For them, being rejected isn't just a personal disappointment. It's an insult, a blow that shatters the inflated image they have of themselves. They thrive on admiration, validation, and the idea that people will always be drawn back to them. So when you take away their power by refusing to allow them back, their ego takes a hit that feels almost unbearable. They begin to think about you in terms of the wound you represent. You become the scar on their carefully constructed self-image. Narcissists live in a fantasy where they are always the center of attention, desired, wanted, and admired. But when you prove to them that their power isn't eternal, you puncture that fantasy. They start replaying the rejection in their mind, not because they want to process it, but because they cannot comprehend how someone could walk away from them and not return. This constant replaying of events turns you into a fixation. They will think about what they could have said differently, how they might have manipulated you harder, or how they could have avoided exposing their weakness. But deep down, the truth that really bothers them is that their ego was defeated by your strength. You did not fall for the cycle again. You did not give them another chance to control the narrative. And that loss is something their fragile sense of superiority cannot handle. What's important to understand here is that narcissists don't truly think about you as a whole person. They think about you as a reflection of their own wounded pride. They think of you because you represent a truth they don't want to face. that they are not as powerful, not as irresistible, and not as untouchable as they like to believe. And that truth stays with them, haunting them, reminding them of the one thing they could not conquer. And so when the narcissist thinks of you, it's not about missing you. It's about resenting the damage your rejection caused to their ego. And that wound will never truly leave their mind. Another reason a narcissist continues to think about you when they can never come back is because of the deep void they carry inside. Beneath the mask of confidence and superiority, a narcissist is often driven by an emptiness they try to fill with the attention, energy, and emotions of others. You were once a source of that supply. Your love, your reactions, even your arguments fed them in ways they could never provide for themselves. When you step away for good, that supply is cut off, and what remains is the hollowness they've always been running from. That void makes them think about you, not because of who you are as a person, but because of what you used to give them. Narcissists rely on external validation like oxygen. They can't sit comfortably with themselves because they've never built a true foundation of self-worth. Everything they project is borrowed from how others see them and respond to them. So when you take away your attention, when you stop giving them the energy they once depended on, they are forced to sit with their own emptiness. And in that space, you become the memory they can't shake. Because you once distracted them from that inner void. They think about the comfort they felt knowing you were always there to feed their ego, to soothe their insecurities, or to give them the attention they demanded. Without you, that craving doesn't go away, it intensifies. Just like someone who loses access to a drug, they begin to feel withdrawal. And just as an addict remembers the high, they remember the feeling of having you under their influence. But what's crucial to understand is that their longing isn't about missing you. It's about missing the version of themselves they were able to maintain when you were around. You were part of the illusion that kept them from facing their truth. Now that the illusion is gone, their thoughts circle back to you, because losing you forces them to confront the emptiness they cannot escape. And so even if they try to replace you with others, you remain in their mind because you represent the gap they can never truly fill. One of the strongest reasons a narcissist keeps thinking about you when they can never come back is because they can't stand the idea of losing control over the story. Narcissists are obsessed with narratives. They need to be the hero, the victim, or the one in charge of how things unfold. When you end the relationship and refuse to re-engage, you take away their ability to control the script. That's why their mind circles back to you, because you represent the chapter of their life they didn't get to finish on their terms. For them, closure doesn't exist unless they are the ones dictating it. If they walk away, they convince themselves it was their choice, their power, their decision. But when you are the one who refuses to allow them back, the power dynamic shifts, and that shift is intolerable for them. It gnaws at them to know that the story didn't end with them in control, and so they think about you as a way to rewrite it in their own head. They might even imagine scenarios where you regret leaving, where you chase them, or where they return triumphant. But underneath those fantasies lies the truth. They lost control. This obsession with control is why they can't let go. Even if they move on to someone else, your presence lingers in their mind because your rejection was an interruption to their narrative. Narcissists don't process reality the way healthy people do. Instead of accepting what happened, they create alternate versions where they win. But no matter how many stories they invent, your absence still reminds them of the truth. That you ended the game and they couldn't change the outcome. That lingering thought is what keeps you alive in their memory. They may not contact you, they may not admit it to anyone, but internally they think of you because you symbolize the one story they couldn't rewrite. To a narcissist, that lack of closure is a wound, and it's a wound they can never fully heal. And so when they think of you, it isn't love or even sadness. It's the burning frustration of losing control over the ending they always wanted to script. Another powerful reason a narcissist continues to think about you when they can never come back is because they cannot accept that you are thriving without them. Narcissists operate on the belief that they are central to your happiness, your success, and even your sense of identity. They convince themselves that you need them, and as long as you are under their influence, they maintain that illusion. But when you walk away and begin to grow, heal, and shine in your own life, it disrupts everything they believe about themselves. That disruption forces them to think about you constantly because you become living proof that they were never as important as they thought. They may spy from a distance, checking your progress, or they may simply imagine how your life looks without them. Either way, your independence unsettles them. The fact that you can smile without their approval, make choices without their input, and find peace without their chaos is something they cannot comprehend. In their world, they are supposed to be the sun around which everyone else orbits. When you step out of their orbit and start to shine on your own, they can't ignore it. It lingers in their mind as a painful reminder of the power they lost. What truly bothers them is not just your growth, but the way it reflects back on them. If you are happy without them, it means they were never the source of your happiness. If you are achieving more without them, it means they were holding you back. These realizations may never be spoken aloud, but they gnaw at the narcissist's fragile self-image. Instead of celebrating your growth like a healthy person might, they feel threatened by it. And because of that threat, they can't stop thinking about you. And they may try to convince themselves that you will eventually fall, that your happiness is temporary, or that you secretly still miss them. But the truth is that your resilience has created a permanent mark in their mind. You remind them of the reality they can't rewrite. You survive them, and you're doing better without them. And so, even if they try to move forward, their thoughts keep circling back to you because your growth is the undeniable evidence that their control was never the key to your life. One of the deepest reasons a narcissist continues to think about you when they can never come back is because you become the symbol of the one person they could not replace. Narcissists often move quickly from one relationship to another, seeking validation and control wherever they can find it. They convince themselves that everyone is interchangeable, that no one truly matters, because as long as they can secure new attention, they feel powerful again. But when it comes to you, someone who walked away and never returned, that belief is challenged. You stand out in their memory not because they cherished you in the way a healthy person would, but because your absence created a void they can't fill with anyone else. They may attempt to surround themselves with new partners, distractions, or admirers, but no matter how many faces they cycle through, the thought of you lingers. That's because your refusal to return marked you as different. You broke the pattern, you resisted the pull, and you escaped their grip. In their mind, that makes you unforgettable, not out of love, but out of frustration and obsession. You become the exception to their rule, the one story they can't erase by simply moving on to someone new. This inability to replace you gnaws at them because it exposes the truth they don't want to face. People are not as disposable as they pretend. Deep down, they know that your strength set you apart, that your decision to end the cycle was something they couldn't manipulate or undo. And every time they try to replicate what they had with you and someone else, it falls short. That disappointment keeps you alive in their mind, even when they wish it didn't. To the narcissist, it isn't about longing for who you are, it's about resenting the fact that you became irreplaceable in a world where they want everyone to be replaceable. And so they think of you not as a person they lost, but as the proof of their failure, the reminder that no matter how hard they try, they can never fully replicate the power, the attention, or the supply they once had from you. And this is why, even when they can never return, your presence lingers in their thoughts as the one they couldn't replace.